WrestleMania weekend turned into Melanin Mania with our girls picking up all the gold. We're going to talk about it in just a second, so stay tuned. This is WrestleXtra.
Yo, this is WrestleXtra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate. Of course, joined by my tag team partner, Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will. And always, of course, it's the first of the month. So we've got our boy, Gerard Bonner, here with us. We're talking all things WrestleMania, the biggest weekend of the wrestling calendar. Just went past just a few days ago, and I'm gonna get your general thoughts on Mania itself, and then we'll talk about all our specifics and all our greatness with the ladies, Bianca, Naomi, Sasha, all the madness with Carmelo and Bobby and everyone else. But give me your general thoughts on how you saw the two-night stupendous, I hate that word, stupendous two-night WrestleMania from Dallas, Texas. Gerard, I'll go to you first.
I will say this. First of all, the stupendous recognition is so Vince McMahon. Like, it is just, I mean, we'd say extraordinary, stupendous. Got it. With that said, I thought it was a really good WrestleMania. I will say I love the 2-day format. I definitely felt like, by the time we got to WrestleMania 35, we were doing 6-hour WrestleManias. It's just too long. So breaking it up over 2 days is really, really good. And I thought they had enough of everything for everybody, So for the pure wrestling fans, there were matches that just made us excited. For the folks who like more entertainment than sports, they had stuff for them too, and everything in between. So by and large, I thought this was a very successful WrestleMania. Sprinkled some great moments in there. Yeah, I like this WrestleMania a lot.
Mix.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As you guys know, NK, you see him in a chat frequently. NK from Wrestlings. He asks during the week, what's exciting you about WrestleMania? Like, what are you looking forward to, sort of thing. And I answered him the spectacle of WrestleMania. That's always what it is for me. Like, of course, every year here and there will be some matches that they've told very well and you want to see the outcome. But it's just that kind of grandioso, big stage, pyro, everything, people in their thousands, going to see the show. And that's exactly what it was. They did everything they could this year in their financial reach to make this stupendous, as they said. And stupendous in terms of just the outlay of it all, entertainment value, the fact that a 70-something-year-old Vince backed off his own suit to come and wrestle. Like, just they wanted those talking points, they wanted it to live up to the word. So again, I found it very entertaining. I thought they'd done a really, really good job.
In a very crazy way. It's the lead up to WrestleMania kind of felt a little bit dead. I guess the big thing that we were all waiting for, the big story that they were telling, was this whole thing with Roman and Brock, which worked out, and it was the biggest story. But everything else was kind of like under the radar. Becky and Bianca was actually decent as well, in terms of the lead up. But I wasn't excited for it. I didn't actually watch WrestleMania until Monday morning.
Wow.
Being busy and all the rest of it, but I didn't feel as though I'm missing something. But when I watched it, I was like, this was good. Everything worked out as it needed to. As Gerard said, the balance of the different types of matches and all the rest of it. You had the good wrestling matches. Edge and AJ Styles, for example. You had the fun stuff, even like Johnny Knoxville and Sami Zayn. That was crazy, but it was actually really entertaining. Even with the Miz and Logan Paul and all those kinds of stuff there. Even actually, the one thing that actually really surprised me as well was the whole thing with Kevin Owens and Stone Cold. I literally thought it was going
yeah.
to be they talk in the middle of the ring, you know, the whole Kevin Owens show thing. Yeah, he did the whole I want a match with you. I thought it was just going to be a stunner done, be here for the next 10 minutes. But it was actually a match, which was crazy and amazing. So all in all, yeah, it actually was. I'm using the word again, stupendous. Amount of
It
times,
was.
listen, I need someone to find out the amount of times that word was actually used on over the 2 days, because it was madness. Even during the matches, even saying that a certain move was stupendous, it was overly done. But this is Vince, and you know Vince had to make sure he had his say, and even came out as Gerard said, even came out and took a drunken stunner.
He literally collapsed during the stunner. It was just so.
Mate, I don't know why has that man never been able to sell a stunner?
Never.
I don't know.
Not ever.
I don't know. It's so mad.
Oh gosh, it was crazy. It was crazy. But you know, him taking the stunner and the Johnny Knoxville match, to me, the description of them was they were so bad that they were good.
Right. It's good, yeah.
It was just so bad. I mean, like,
okay,
think about it. First, now the funny thing is with the stunner, you had Austin Theory who took it like a champ. Like that was some old Scott Hall rock kind of reaction to the stunner. And then you get Vince. What?
Two other ends of the
bounced off
spectrum.
the ropes. He couldn't go. And I mean, that happens within 10 seconds of each other. It's incredible. It's great. Oh, God, it's great.
It was so funny.
Oh, yeah.
But getting into night one, and the biggest talking point for us, of course, was Bianca versus Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship. As I said, for me, you know, one of probably only two matches where the lead up to it was focused on, or you know, had some kind of substance to it, and you kind of got excited as to what the match was going to bring us. And it was a really good match. You know, Becky, as Mex has been saying for the last, you know, couple of months, that Becky's been doing her work in terms of putting Bianca over. And she did it again in the best way possible in the match. It was actually, for me, one of Becky's better matches by far. I'm not the biggest fan of Becky in the ring, but this one was good. Mex, how did you see the match itself? How do you feel about the outcome? Just give me your thoughts on that match.
Probably again the best match on the night, which kind of, you know, tallies up with what Bianca did last year with Sasha.
Yep.
She's had 2 WrestleMania singles matches now, produced 2 excellent performances. She took a boot to the face, and we've all seen the after effects of that, and continued. So that couldn't have been easy. I really feel like they're putting the rocket behind Bianca.
Yeah, man.
Like it almost feels so good to be true. I was sitting here with my missus and I was saying, like, I almost feel like they're kind of front loading her whole career, almost as if she's told them by maybe this year, I'm going to go off and have a baby, which could be some type of planning that, you know, females do. I don't know. But like, it almost feels like they're giving her everything. But at the same time, it's deserved. It's a deserved thing. I don't feel like I'm being forced to you know, take this person on board. Like, the match was really, really good. Like you know, we've kind of always said amongst the 4 horsewomen, Becky is probably the weakest of the 4, sort of thing. What I will say, since she's returned in SummerSlam, her matches have been very, very good.
They have been a lot better.
So maybe she's been training a lot in that off period or whatever the case is. And like I said, again, like, she has done so much hard work to kind of cement Bianca Belair, which should happen, because if you're going to drop the title to the person, you want to make them look as, you know, I have lost to the best person, sort of thing. So it totally makes sense. Both of them in their attires, you know, the WrestleMania attires and the entrances, I thought were excellent as well. But yeah, like Bianca Belair, the level, the bar is high right now in that division. Like, you're looking around, like, apart from maybe the Baileys and Asukas they'll bring back, and you would think in the first instance, you know, the fact that Bianca's just become champion will probably lose to Bianca. who's gonna beat Bianca? Really and truly, like the bar is that high right now.
It's very, very exciting. Gerard, like, what are your thoughts in terms of, you know, where Bianca is now? Now she's done 2 WrestleManias in a row where she's won championships. Now had the SmackDown and now the Raw Women's Championship. Is it too much too soon? Do you think it will last? Like, what is next with Bianca Belair?
What I think is so interesting about Bianca is, you know, to everything that Mex said, Bianca is now becoming a proven commodity. You know, in terms of too much too soon, I don't think so, because athletically she backs it up. And then if you look at the difference between her match at last year's WrestleMania and this year's WrestleMania, it's like night and day. And that speaks volumes, I think, to Bianca. I think what WWE is recognizing, which is really good, is that right now, you know, you had the 4 horsewomen who certainly are a big deal, but they're at a space where they know, they understand they're going to need some people coming behind them to be able to continue to carry the women's division. And so I think Bianca leads the charge. And I think right now the next great rivalry is going to be Bianca and Rhea Ripley. I mean, these two together, that's the answer. And I think they've got what it takes to go the next few years and still give some juice still to, you know, the Charlottes and all of the rest of the 4 horsewomen. Of course, Bayley will be coming back at some point. So I think right now the challenge for Bianca is they're going to have to build up some other folks for her to feud with. Because what you don't want is what happened last year. You remember her title reign last year, we all kind of went, Now, with that said, I do have one thing that I'd like to see happen with Bianca, and it was really proven last night on Raw. I need something to happen with the pace of her promos. Right now, her promos are feeling almost too lily white. They're feeling too good. As in we're the good guy, and you know, I take everything and I turn it into this, and I need a little edge. I don't need her to go full heel. I just need a bit of an edge on that, and a little bit of a quicker pace, because it seemed like she was trying to think of what she was going to say last night. The space in between was a bit too much, and I don't know if it was just, you know, hey, her eye is busted, she's a wee bit overwhelmed. I get it. I totally get it. But I definitely want that piece a little bit stronger for Bianca. But other than that, she's a total package. And what's so rare is having so little wrestling background coming into this. She still has a lot of years ahead of her as long as she wants. So this is a good space for Bianca Belair.
It's gonna be very interesting. Next, go for it.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, just on that point. So my pitch for this match of WrestleMania was always for Bianca to win, but because they were doing so much of this hair stuff, I said Bianca should win, but Becky retains her heat by cutting her ponytail after the match.
Right. Yes.
And then maybe we still have that heat. We see a more fierce Bianca, almost not heel like you said, but turning more into that NXT Bianca that we all grew to love, just getting a bit more aggressive with everything. And it could have just freshened up her character. You know, she's not the person that comes out and swings her hair and stuff like that. I think something like that could have helped, just as you're saying.
And to your point, I think they've got to leverage this eye situation. Like, to me, the eye is just like when Becky's nose got broke. When Becky's nose got broke, it suddenly made her super tough Becky. I think they can do that for Bianca, and it doesn't feel like a massive stretch, you know? So that's what I think of that.
Yeah. I think it's interesting how, you know, this whole hair thing didn't really, it kind of ended before the match.
Right.
It was kind of put to one side before the match. You know, we only had Becky coming out with a nice new hairdo. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that was it. It should have been a big part of the match itself, as Mick said. I don't know if they've missed an opportunity or it's something they could come back to. But at the same time as well, when you think about her ponytail, it's almost like, you know, it almost feels like John Cena turning heel. Bianca losing the ponytail is like John Cena turning heel. It's like you're taking away almost the one thing that everyone associates Bianca Belair with. And I don't know. I in a way, I almost feel as though WWE will probably be scared that that will hurt maybe even the merchandise. Or not that they've got ponytails on sale, but you know what I mean.
They
like,
have ponytails on sale, by the way.
You're lying.
They do. They do.
Oh,
wow.
well, there you go. That's why they're holding on.
There you go. It is a signature look.
So yeah, I think it's very much that for me. If they're holding on to it, it's definitely a marketing type of decision. But at the same time, in a wrestling sense, it would make it so much easier to tell the story and to give her that edge. You know, they could have even done a thing where, as Mex said, her ponytail gets cut off in some way or whatever, and then even as champion, she's scared to appear because she has no ponytail. She doesn't know what to do, and then eventually she has to come out and be this, this angry or more edgy Bianca. But we'll see what happens. And I think the thing with Rhea is definitely going to be something to look out for, especially now with this talk of her joining Edge's little stable and what that's going to do for Rhea as well, because Rhea needs something new.
Yes.
This whole thing with Nikki ASH and then Liv, they had their little tag team match yesterday. Apparently that match is happening again next week, even though they lost that contender match. WWE logic. There you go.
Yeah.
But apparently the talk is like, the match probably won't even start. Rhea will do something to Liv and then kind of associate herself with Edge or, however that's going to work out. So you've got Rhea, you've got Becky, I guess on the heels of Bianca, but I'm not too sure if there's anyone else in the division who could go on, Gerard.
No, because as you're talking, I'm thinking, and this is kind of the ideal moment right now to bring Io Shirai into the picture.
Ooh.
Because right now there's nobody else in NXT who could come up and handle this, and there's really no one else on the Raw. You bring Io Shirai in, we have a completely different conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
Completely different. I think right now she's the new face that Raw or SmackDown need. Raw, particularly if we're gonna go after Bianca Belair, Bianca and Io. Ooh, print that money.
And it would definitely need to be early Io, not current Io. Early, more darker. Mysterious to come through.
Yes.
That would be top notch. That would be top notch for sure.
Good shout.
Speaking and keeping obviously with our black female winners, we have Sasha Banks and Naomi, who are the new women's tag team champions. They won a fatal 4-way tag team match, of course, at Mania on night two. Yes. It's great to see them with the title. The only thing is it's that title. Now, I saw a little clip with the ladies talking. I think it was the next day after they actually no, they won it on after they won it, they had the little panel thing. And Sasha was very much back on her opinion of why she pushed for this title to be a thing, because she was the one that pushed for this tag team title. And she was talking as almost if this title can be defended on every promotion, because she did also say we'll go to NXT and defend it as well. I mean, she must have forgot that they've got their own one now. But obviously we've seen how WWE have kind of like not really put enough, importance on these tag team titles. Now it's back on Sasha. Do we see anything changing? Is Sasha kind of fooling herself in what she wants to happen with this thing? Is it going to make a difference to the titles themselves?
I think with Sasha having the title, it means that there's going to be more for the title. We saw that last time when I think it was when Sasha and Bayley were chasing Asuka and Kairi Sane for it. Then they eventually won it. And of course, those two were just doing God's work during that pandemic on every brand. They were just so entertaining. And I think that's probably the same similar situation they want to go with from here. Now, the other teams in the division, like you said earlier, it seems like Rhea and Liv might not even be a thing post next week. That leaves Shayna and Natalia, which no one really cares about. Carmella and Zelina Vega broke up this week. So they're gonna need to produce some new teams,
right?
To really keep these titles going. But with Sasha holding it, it should definitely mean something. There should be a lot of action between, at least, even if it's singles matches, which doesn't do anything for the tag division, for Sasha Banks and for Naomi. They've got to do something with it. But the issue is Sasha can't be the patron saint of the tag division.
No.
As far as I'm concerned, we haven't even seen like a Charlotte Flair-esque dominant run from Sasha Banks' career yet. They were saying, I think the other day, that she's like a 7-time women's champion. I'm just thinking, half of those times she lost it the following week. This shouldn't define. I know Sasha wants to do well for this title, but this title shouldn't define her career. And yeah, they need to do way more for this tag belt outside of Sasha holding it and making up noise and make it mean something. She means well, but they need to pull their weight as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, to that, I will say this. I really believe that probably Friday night after the Hall of Fame ceremony, that Pastor Mark Calloway got with Sasha and Naomi and laid his Undertaker hands on them and pronounced blessing over their career, because they came out like gangbusters Sunday night. Okay,
right.
They were incredible. The level of tag team work we saw them do was something we really haven't seen in the women's tag team division. And so I think the case of them holding the belt is a space where the winners or whoever the champions are make the titles instead of the titles making the champions. And so in this case, I think the women's titles just became far more important because Bishop Calloway laid his hands on those two young ladies. That's what happened. And I'm excited for it. Now, I'd love to see what other teams are going to have battle them. I think it's time to create some teams and make some things happen. But you can always tell what they think about the women's tag titles based on who's holding the straps. And so the last two champions have been so forgettable. Now we get a chance to see these two. I mean, they both look amazing right now. We're seeing some of their best work right now. And so I think now is a chance for women to go, oh no, the tag titles are serious again. Let's actually form a team and not just throw random people together so that Bishop Calloway can come bless us too. Yeah. Did he not walk the floor Friday night though? I just was like, sir, listen. He said, I got you. Man, oh man, I tell you. Yes, sir.
Oh, man. Yo.
I mean, he came up with the whole head mic on. He's walking he's in the middle of a Jake's conference. I'm like, you've done this before, Pastor Mark. I recognize that. You've done this before.
Oh gosh,
man. I mean, with Sasha and Naomi as champions, it's great for both of them. Finally, we've got some gold on Naomi again after how long. It gives us something to do as well. It's very clear, even from the little panel thing that they did as well, that Naomi feels as though she's got a level of purpose again as well, which is great to see from her, and the excitement that she has and all the rest of it is going to be is great. I really hope that it means something for both of them, whether that is together or eventually, separately. We take Naomi towards, being a serious contender for the SmackDown Women's Championship, or wherever she ends up when she becomes, a singles wrestler again, or whatever it is. I'm just fearful that it's those titles. That's all it is for me. It's those titles. It's great to see them with gold. I don't know. It feels like a little bit of a demotion for Sasha, as Meg said. You don't want this to define her career. Naomi, it kind of gives her something to do, but how long is that going to last? And how do WWE themselves see it? You know what I mean? So it's a little bit worrying. I'm happy for them, of course, in every way. I feel if it was just left to them, we're gonna be good. We're gonna see some great things happening. WWE or WWE.
At this point, I think like a woman's mid-card belt, a women's intercontinental title, a European title would be best served on the main roster. The NXT the NXT ladies had to come up with their own belt because this traveling title never traveled down to NXT.
Right.
They came up with their own, and even till today, those titles really do mean something. So in the main roster, not quite the same. They just need to have like their own kind of mid-card belt, maybe. So then that provides another story on the main roster rather than like I say, in the next few weeks, we're gonna see all kinds of people just thrown together to just make it seem like stuff is happening in the women's tag division. So yeah.
I almost feel like it's gonna be, you know, more of a both of them doing single stuff, but the other one's going to be behind them and backing them, and
until maybe a pay-per-view and they defend it, and then back to singles work. Yeah,
who is there? I mean, you know, literally, there really is only Shayna and Natalya. Literally no other pairing.
They can put some of the girls that are newer to the main roster, like a Shotzi and Aaliyah together, maybe. And there's some other people. I mean, Asuka and Bayley are gonna come back, but hopefully they're on the singles missions. There's a couple of really fringe names that they can throw together, but that's it. We don't see them as a team that can trouble these guys. We just see them as two ladies that are sticking together to just, you know, so these guys can defend their title. So
it's funny you mentioned Shotzi, because that reminded me. Remember when Shotzi and Tegan Nox debuted on SmackDown, and in their first match they beat the women's tag champs?
And never got a shot,
and never got a title shot, right? Like, what in the world? So I'm hoping that they'll bring some folks in. I mean, we still, you know, Alexa Bliss is floating out there somewhere. You know, I mean, goodness, you could put Nikki and Alexa back together. They were a great tag team. They were tag champs. So I think they've got some possibilities if they think through their roster. I mean, put Doudrop with somebody. Well, first of all, change her name. I mean, bring her back to Piper. And then from there, we'll take her seriously. And I mean, there are options. Maybe you need to bring Kaylee Ray up. You know, there are some options. I just think they have to really be, to your point, committed to the women's tag division and putting some things together, and then it'll be something that we really want to watch.
Yeah, for sure. What do you feel it does it? Do you feel it actually means anything past our own community? Do you think it means anything to have Bianca, Sasha, and Naomi all holding championships? So we've seen photos of them together, you know, in the back and on Raw and all that kind of stuff. Do you feel it means something, or it's gonna do anything for the women's division in WWE?
You know what I think is interesting about this? I think Bianca, Sasha, and Naomi have done something that a lot of other African-American females hadn't done in WWE. They've transcended their community to the point where when people see them, you know, people love them regardless of, you know, if they look like us or not. They love them. And so for them, it probably won't register, oh snap, we've got 3 Black female champions. It'll register to us clearly, but to them, they'll be like, oh wow, they're all champs and we love them. So I think they'll still find it significant. I think the significance will be deeper for us. Plus, you know, particularly when we look at all 3 of those ladies, how we've all been supporting them, wanting them to have great runs. I think the other communities have looked a little differently. But with that said, I still think the other communities very much love Sasha and Naomi as well. So I think it's significant for all of them, because those 3 have really registered and resonated with everybody.
Yeah, this isn't a thing where it's like these guys are holding titles because they're Black. Like they all actually deserve to, you know, come out of WrestleMania with those titles, be featured on TV on a weekly basis as they are, like it makes sense. And even, you know, I just feel, as to you know, Adrian's question, it just stretches and shows like the younger women coming up in the industry, like this so-called ceiling that maybe was once at a point there. You can clearly see now across all these promotions. We got Tasha Steelz as Knockouts champion. Jade Cargill is still, you know, running crazy on AEW. Like this ceiling is only there if you believe it's there now. Like if you want to hold yourself back and say that this is a thing, and it's not to say racism or anything like that is eradicated. It's not. But like these ceilings should not exist anymore. If you're good, you will find a way through. And you know, like Gerard said, Jade Cargill, Tasha Steelz, Sasha Banks, Naomi, and Bianca Belair are just good. They are just good in their division, and they can just hang. It don't matter if they could be Latino women at this point, and all communities will like them. They could be white women at this point. All communities will like them. They're just doing their job very well.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because now as you think about it, if you think about the major promotions, WWE, AEW, Impact, and even throw Ring of Honor in there, right now there's technically only 2 Caucasian women that hold titles. That's Charlotte and Deonna. Right now in Impact, you've got Tasha Steelz. Now in Ring of Honor, you've got Mercedes Martinez as the interim champion. Thank you, Tony Khan, for all things interim. Then you have, of course, in AEW, Thunder Rosa, Jade Cargill. And then in WWE, you've got Bianca, Sasha, Naomi, and then Charlotte is the only other champ. So it is really an extraordinary day right now for Black women. And what I really like, for women of color as well, what I really like is they all get to be unapologetically themselves. That to me is the real win. You know, to have Sasha, you know, and Snoop doing her music, and Sasha gets to come out and fully be Sasha, and Naomi gets to fully be Naomi, and Bianca gets to bring out an HBCU marching band. Like that was so like, to me, it doesn't get any more Black than our marching bands. And then she comes out like the drum major. I'm like, this is incredible. It is incredible. And so this is a special time. I mean, to me, as special as last year's Mania was because of Bianca's win and Bobby Lashley's win, I think this year, looking at the state of women, African-American women in this business, man, this is a major moment right now. It's major.
It's crazy because obviously, you know, last year we talked about WrestleMania being like the blackest WrestleMania ever and all that kind of stuff. Whereas this time around, and more so to what Mix was just saying, how, you know, I've asked the question about it being 3 Black women and whether it means anything to anyone, but the simple fact that they're not being looked at as 3 Black women is the win.
That is the win.
That's the big win. And Gerard, as you said, you know, it's happening across the board now with other promotions as well. So it's, you know, they get to be Black women. They get to be themselves. They get to be, you know, as Thunder Rosa, they get to be Latino women, and even with Tasha Steelz, she gets to be Afro Latino, and unapologetically that way, and all the rest of it. But at the same time, no one's looking at it as if to say, "Oh, they've only got the title because they're Black and someone needs to tick a box." I don't feel like that at all with any of those names that we just mentioned.
Totally.
Not even Jade, who is this green wrestler. She's just great. She looks amazing. She does her thing. And she's where she's at because of that. It's crazy. It's crazy to think that they have all transcended this whole, you know, this ceiling that definitely was there. In some ways is kind of still there, if that makes sense. But at the same time, there are more than enough now. And given the list that we just named of the current top women's champions in the business, yeah, man, this is it's exciting. It's exciting to know that we're doing this, and it's just because they are great. And it's simple as that. Moving on just a little bit, and we're talking about another great guy One of my favorites over the last 12 months, Bobby Lashley. So glad he's back because I actually got something to talk about now. I ain't gonna lie to you. But we've got this whole new thing now where he came back and faced Omos. When I first heard about that, I was like, really? Is this what we're doing? But in a way, it's working out nicely because their match was decent for who they are and what it was. To see Omos grab Bobby Lashley from out of the sky. Come on. That was just nuts to me. But now, of course, last night on Raw after Mania, we saw MVP turn on Lashley. My heart is still hurting. Give me a moment. Why MVP? Why?
Yeah.
So, we've got MVP now siding with Omos. I asked the question on Twitter earlier today, like, what is the Hurt Business now? We've got Shouton and Cedric still calling himself that. Bobby Lashley's on his own, and MVP and Omos. Is MVP and Omos Hurt Business? What is going on? What is going on?
I'll just say, that firstly, I'm still not like overly invested in Omos. I'll just say that. However, they are trying to get us invested. He has been beating people left, right, and center on Raw. So I think him losing to Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania was the wrong move, especially since it looks like now he's probably going to go on and beat Bobby Lashley in the next week or two, right. With MVP's help. What I feel should have happened, because this is WrestleMania as well, MVP should have turned on Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania. Do the turn there, let that motivate Omos beating Bobby Lashley, and now all of a sudden Bobby Lashley has the hill to try and overcome to beat Omos with his ex-manager sort of thing. They've done this all kind of the wrong way, in my opinion. However, just on the face value, I think that Omos having MVP is valuable. Is very, very valuable. It will help him with his promos. It will help him with, maybe just in general getting a bit of advice from someone a bit more experienced. My fear is, where does it leave Bobby Lashley? I don't want to see Bobby Lashley just coming out and smiling at everyone and fist pumps and all of that kind of stuff. Bobby Lashley's had a terrific last 18 months or so now, like right at the top of the division, even though he's not viewed like a Brock or a Roman. He is basically been, number 3 guy in the company, if you know. But right now he just looks like, once this Omos and MVP stuff might be finished, I don't know where he's gonna kind of find himself, and that kind of worries me, because it doesn't seem like let's be honest, Hurt Business was all MVP's idea. Right, let's turn Bobby and do this, that, and the other. And I've heard someone say this before, that Vince McMahon has never, ever viewed Bobby Lashley as like a dominant, scary heel or anything like that, because he's worked in the army and should be praised and held to a high regard because of his past. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. But like, he looks pretty much, and I don't want to tempt fate, but he looks pretty much like he's going to settle back into, shaking his bum, and Max Caster might dress up as his sister again, and all of this kind of nonsense.
Oh, boy. I'm just going to attribute that to PTSD. I will say I liked Lashley coming back and winning at WrestleMania. I feel like Omos has been overrated for the last year. Overrated in terms of skill, overrated in terms of his talking ability. I do think that when you put him against Lashley, we are reminded of just how massive he is, because we know Lashley is a big guy.
Right.
And for Lashley to look like a child in front of somebody, it's one of those things you just can't take your eyes off of, right? Like, you can't take your eyes off. Now, in my circle, with our friends at the Faction, we have termed Omos as the Black El Gigante. You know, it is just that kind of giant Gonzalez kind of thing, but he's a bit more athletic than the giant Gonzalez was. I think having this turn happen on Monday night actually added a layer to that story. And what it does is it makes us care about Omos again, because at this point, Omos loses the undefeated streak. Okay, he's done. On to the next. Now we have to pay attention, as this is no longer a one-off thing. Obviously, this means at some point Omos is going to beat Lashley. Does he win the overall feud? I don't know yet. But what I'm saddened about is it just seems as though everything that was Hurt Business is fully dissolved now. Right. And that is what's painful to me, because I still don't see the real reason why MVP would turn on Lashley, other than you didn't need me last night. Well, there has to be more than that. I mean, MVP is the one who said that Lashley didn't need him. Lashley didn't say I didn't need MVP. So from a psychology standpoint, I don't fully get the turn. Though, to your point, Mex, I totally think Omos needs an MVP. Like, totally. Because MVP will provide the level of guidance that's necessary to make Omos a serious contender. We don't need Omos to be another Big Show. Like, we don't need that. If he's going to be big and he's going to be strong, then let's make it a thing. Let's make him really unbeatable. And, with wrestlers in general now being a bit smaller than they used to be, he looks even bigger. So he is a giant. He is a one of one. He is one of one. He's better than the other two giants that they have around there. So I think that they just have to put the rocket ship on him. But I think MVP is the way to go with that. He needs that kind of guidance, and hopefully he'll listen, and we'll see where it goes.
I mean, he always needed someone, because as soon as he disbanded from AJ Styles, it was like, right, what do we do with this guy? What is he?
Right.
Where does it go? We had all this, undefeated streak and was beating people left, right, and center, but it wasn't anything significant at all. Right. This whole thing with Lashley, it was fine. With Lashley winning, it was okay, but I think I'm very much on what Mex is saying as well. It's kind of almost the wrong way around, in the sense of, it probably should have been MVP turning on Lashley, then almost wins. He's still got this streak. Lashley has to prove a point, and eventually it happens, and hopefully Lashley goes on to do even bigger things after that. With it being this way around, it kind of makes you feel you're not sure what's going to happen with either one of them. Yeah. And as much as the unpredictability is always a good thing in wrestling, with this, it's kind of a bit more of a negative, because you just don't know where it's going to go, what it means for anyone, and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit worrying. I don't know what's going to happen next with either of them, but almost needed MVP or someone to that ilk, for sure. But Lashley on his own as a face, because even just his little post-match interview, after Mania, I was like, huh? I'm really glad to be here. I'm living out my dreams. What?
we need angry Lashley.
What?
I am with you. Angry Lashley wins titles. Lashley is dominant. I'm totally with you on that.
It was weird. I was, you're saying what he was saying. I was like, hold on. When did Malik Blade come to WrestleMania?
Well said.
Living my dreams, mate. This is like the third WrestleMania you've done in a row. Crazy. Yeah. So we're gonna have this smiling Lashley, which is just weird to me. Just very weird to me. I hope it doesn't go that far to where he's showing his bum and getting married to someone else's wife and having male sisters.
No. After all, he's supposed to get a rematch. He never got a rematch. So for the title. So for me, I'm just wondering, maybe this is the placeholder, because right now we've got to figure out who's going to be the number one contender to the new unified champion, which Brock seems to be out of the picture. So that seems to be up for grabs. So,
You know, the I guess the options, you know, Drew McIntyre might show face again and, you know, be pushed up there. It will feel a bit weird after what he's just done with Corbin and
yeah.
Roman needs to slay some guys before he reaches McIntyre, who is probably the eventual guy. So Bobby Lashley is a great shout because he didn't lose in the chamber. He just couldn't compete in the chamber, and that's how he dropped it. So he could. I say raise his stock against Roman. He's going to lose, but he can put on a great match with Roman once maybe Roman's all healed up and stuff. And just see where that takes him.
Yeah.
Keeping with MVP, the Hurt Business, and I'm saying this to say we saw Carmelo Hayes lose his North American Championship at Stand and Deliver. I've seen quite a few pictures, little videos and stuff with Carmelo Hayes rubbing shoulders with MVP. Now I know that's kind of outside of the ring, but that just got my head ticking, turning, and all the rest of it. The question I'm asking is, what is next for Carmelo Hayes? Does he go on to win or to chase the North American Championship again? Does he go on to face Braun Breaker, who just became a second-time NXT champion? Or does he go to the main roster and, in my dream, team up with MVP and do his main roster thing? What is next for Carmelo Hayes? Mex, I'll go to you first.
I like the kind of relationship that is being portrayed on social media with him and MVP. I don't think he needs MVP though. Okay. I think this guy, I wouldn't even mind if it was like on TV, there's a bit of a like, you know, they walk past each other in the backstage, a little, you know, spud, a little fist pump to each other, whatever the case is. They acknowledge each other. He's like big bro, but he's not like my manager sort of thing. That would be cool, I think.
Right.
Yeah. But like MVP's almost keeping tabs on him, sort of thing. But they're not together. But I think NXT title. I think this guy has shown that he's the A champ. Now he ain't got the belt, and man's still calling himself the A champ. Like he is next in line. He's been given, you know, that special blessing, similar to Undertaker's one. But I think this one's come from Shawn Michaels. Everyone can see that he's got it. And yeah, his acceleration through the ranks has been quicker than what I think we might have all expected, including those guys at NXT. It's kind of funny to me now that, you know, Braun Breaker's back as NXT champion, because I thought Dolph Ziggler and Carmelo Hayes could have probably put on a fantastic match, and Carmelo Hayes takes it from him.
A dream for me.
Yeah, but we'll see where it goes. But yeah, I think before, like maybe by SummerSlam in the next couple of months, don't be surprised if Carmelo Hayes is NXT champion, because him and Trick Williams are doing some great stuff.
It's crazy.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The next stop is the NXT championship. I think, you know, for all of the folks in this 2.0 era, I think Carmelo Hayes, who is one of the last kind of the dying breed of the black and gold, is really that guy to have the thing that makes NXT cool. Braun Breaker is Braun Breaker, right? But no offense, he's very much a Steiner. And like his father and his uncle, you know, he's going to be explosive, but he can't talk. And we only want to see him be explosive. We don't want to sit down with Braun Breaker, right? You know, Carmelo Hayes is the guy you want to go to the barbershop with. He's the guy who he's that guy. And so I think that cool factor has always been a thing for NXT. I think he's got to have a run as NXT champion before he finds himself on Raw or SmackDown. If they bring him up to Raw or SmackDown in the next 3 months, it's too soon. It's not fair. Let this thing cook in the oven a bit longer, because the thing is, as he grows, so grows NXT. And so I think that's going to be the thing. I hated the NXT title match last night on Raw. I hated it. Totally hated it, because I felt like it was completely unnecessary. At least go back to NXT and do this. Don't have the title change hands on Raw. I don't like that. Yeah. But with that said, Carmelo Hayes for NXT champion, certainly before the end of the year.
I'm I slightly disagree in terms of like, well, not disagree, but kind of see the point as to why they changed hands with the NXT Championship on Raw. Maybe to kind of, you know, put some eyes back on NXT. I just see it as one of those types of situations. But at the same time, I don't see why they did it then when they should have just done it on the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Basically.
Or at least put it another month out or something. But don't just do it right after. Like, that's great.
Right. Yeah. That's madness. In terms of going back to Carmelo Hayes, you know, I put a little poll out on Twitter just before the show and asked the question, you know, what's next for Carmelo Hayes? Options being NXT champion, 2-time North American champion, or the main roster, and 83% of people are saying NXT champion. So I think we're all kind of on that same mindset that he needs to stay down in NXT for a little longer, do that whole thing where he completely proves himself to be, you know, almost undeniable. So when he does come up, you know, we're hoping that it means big things for him, or something will, you know, there's substance to him being there instead of, you know, probably coming up and his name being changed to Butch.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's definitely important for him to stay there, continue to just shine, prove himself. Because, you know, outside of WWE, for me, he is probably the paramount black wrestler in the game at the moment. Like, obviously, we've got Jonathan Gresham, we've got Swerve, but with the promise and that he has, you know, at the moment, and with the amount of, you know, I guess trust that WWE are putting in him at the moment, you know, the sky's the limit for him, and I can see him very much easily being similar to, say, The Rock, or even, you know, even with the way Austin Theory is being used now, I can see him kind of being in that on that same level at some point when he does make the move to the main roster. But I don't want it to be in the same breath as Austin Theory, or as, you know, anyone else, or even, you know, anyone else that's come up early and kind of just withered away. It needs to be that whole, right, we've got a 10-year plan for this guy, and this is how we're doing it. You know what I mean?
The one thing that excites me about Carmelo Hayes is the fact that this NXT 2.0 is supposed to be a closer bridge between what's happening down there and what's happening up here. To your point earlier as to this NXT title match happening on Raw, it's probably for, you know, to put eyes on NXT. Maybe the viewing numbers I've heard aren't doing too great. It's probably to put eyes on Bron Breakker, like getting the crowd ready, plus the casuals that would have been there on the Raw after Mania. Like, this guy is coming soon. This guy is what you can expect to see maybe the next few years on WWE TV. So with Carmelo Hayes getting all this kind of airtime, basically, and exposure, I hope that this is, you know, the likes of the Vince and Bruce's and all these guys that are the decision makers are saying that, yeah, this guy's solid. And when he comes to main roster, we're not going to treat him like insert name. He is going to be, you know, a prominent figure for us. Like you said, even if it's to a level of an Austin Theory, he is going to be somewhat a prominent figure. His size, I hope, doesn't hold him back going forward. I am scared that, you know, these mid-card belts that don't mean anything are going to be his ceiling. But yeah, hopefully, you know, he can get an opportunity to demonstrate the talent he has that, you know, can go, you know, way beyond just being an Intercontinental title champion that don't mean nothing. Like,
let's go there actually, because it's very weird, very worrying that we have Intercontinental champion in Ricochet, and yes, it came out of nowhere. But, you know, both the Intercontinental and the United States Championship were not defended on WrestleMania at all. And I find it weird, not simply because of the titles, but even down to who holds them as well. Because both men would have given you an absolute spectacle on that night. Ricochet
Mhm.
and United States champion Finn Balor.
Mhm.
It's weird that they haven't been used. But my thing is this: comparing now Ricochet to a Carmelo Hayes. Ricochet's run on the main roster has not been great at all. This is his second championship that he's had, but even when he won the United States Championship, I think he held it for like a month, if that. And my worry is that with Ricochet, he obviously was this big, indie star before he signed with NXT. Came through. They wasn't sure what name they were going to give him, whether it was going to be Ricochet or Trevor Man, his government name. And he did great things with the North American Championship, chasing that, eventually winning that, having this great feud that he had with Velveteen Dream. Came into the main roster, this weird stuff with Aleister Black as a tag team, and then he's just kind of part of me is actually quite surprised he's still there, not because of his talent, but just the way he's been used. Can you see any difference between how Carmelo Hayes will be used to how Ricochet has been used? That's the question I'm asking.
I'm actually scared about that. I'm scared. Let me tell you what scared me about that. And this is going to sound off the beaten path, but it's going to make sense. WrestleMania Friday, the thing that scared me was seeing Tommaso Ciampa in that Battle Royal. When I saw Tommaso Ciampa in the Battle Royal, I thought two things. Number one, you just completely gave away your NXT situation the next day. But number two, I was like, Tommaso Ciampa looks really small in this ring. And that made me think that one of the big differences between what's going on Raw and SmackDown and NXT is size. And I hate that that's a situation, but it is. And so, what saddens me about Ricochet is here's a guy, again, the greatest main roster run he had was that whole weekend where, him and Aleister did take over that Saturday night and then came back on Sunday and killed in the tag match. And that was it. I mean, the thought that Ricochet won the Intercontinental Championship and then lost 2 times in the same night to tag team wrestlers and then ends up defending the title on WrestleMania SmackDown, aka the new WrestleMania pre-show, was frightening to me. And I don't want to jinx anything, but you're surprised he's still there. Let's remember the annual WrestleMania cut is coming up in about a week or two. So I don't want that to be his fate. But to answer your question, I'm now very concerned about the smaller wrestlers in WWE. Think about Pete Dunne and how great he is, but how he looks literally like a little runt in there with Sheamus and Rich Holland. It frightens me that this is the same guy that held the UK title for 650 days. Those things frighten me right now. And I'm actually scared about that for Carmelo Hayes because he's not going to grow a foot, right? He's just not going to get that much taller. He could bulk up in size, but he'll still be the same height. So I'm nervous. I'm really nervous. If they can find a way to make something work for those guys, that would be fantastic. But I'm very nervous considering, again, Ricochet and Finn Balor, your Intercontinental and US champions, not on WrestleMania at all. Why?
They should have just been absolutely lazy and just said champion versus champion, Finn Balor versus Ricochet at WrestleMania.
Which would have been an insane match.
Those two would have killed it. But like you're saying, size has to be a factor. Like even Gunter. Look how slim he's getting. He looks insane, good, but he didn't care about his size before he came to America.
Right.
But he knows now, if he probably looks the part, one, they ain't going to put a vest on him or something silly like that. And then two, he probably gets a half decent push.
Yes.
So it is the way of the WWE, isn't it?
It's worrying, man. It's worrying. I mean, like I said, to not see the championships defended at WrestleMania, to see what Ricochet has been doing since he's held that belt, to know that even with Finn Balor, he defeated Damian Priest, but it's Damian Priest that's on TV and not Finn.
Appeared
Yeah.
Damien gets
yeah.
to hang with Edge, and Finn
Yeah.
gets nothing.
Yeah, that's very worrying.
Like I said, we obviously hope there's this continuity from NXT 2.0. I guess that was the whole point of it going forward. But do not be surprised if these guys, Melo and Williams, are called up to the main roster and Carmelo Hayes is Trick Williams' manager.
I literally just thought about that. I literally just thought about that.
Don't be surprised.
Think about this: Lio Rush and Lashley. There just does not seem to be a space on the main roster for wrestlers who are not 6 feet. It's like that era has seemingly left us again. And now you add Gable Steveson whenever he's going to show up. You know, again, it's a type that they're playing to. And I'm actually very, very frightened by that. Let me remind you again, Ricochet as the Intercontinental Champion lost to Humberto Carrillo. Humberto.
Yeah, man.
Oh man. Yeah, the whole Trick Williams Carmelo switch of I guess roles would be very weird. We also did hear the whole thing, the whole rumor that Adam Cole was gonna be Keith Lee's manager as well. Yeah, it's worrying. And let me just say this real quick before we finish, and we've just come past our hour. But I found it very weird that Gable Steveson was brought out on night 1 and then was mentioned again on night 2. Then he did his little. What was the point? I think they're almost kind of, in a way, almost gonna get fans to dislike him.
Yes, without trying.
But that's what they did with Angle. And it was a charm.
That's true.
They made Angle come out. I'm the gold medalist every single time, and it made him so hated, but it worked. The one thing I will raise with this, I didn't see this. Someone said this online that WWE are very tone deaf. Because obviously, I'm sure you guys are aware of Gable Stevenson's past stuff that he would have got up to when he was studying, when he was in university, and people were saying it was very tone deaf of WWE to put him out there drinking with other guys, Riddle being one of these guys. That's what got him into this situation or trouble. Yes. I would like to think that this doesn't define his career, or even when he does get his chance on Raw, this isn't something that holds him back, but it's already being talked about online, so it's just one to watch.
Everything gets talked about on Twitter. So
yeah, well, and to me, the crazy part about that is he was never charged.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm just like, are we going to keep going back and grabbing things on people? Like, if he's charged, and okay, we got something completely different. You know what I mean? But it's like,
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Gable Steveson. Obviously, they're pitting him as this great guy, and obviously, he is in terms of his accolades and stuff and whatnot. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they move with him going forward. With that said, we are at the end of the show. As always, thank you, Gerard, for joining us. Mex as well. Of course, you can watch. Or you can find Mex doing all sorts of other things on YouTube, on the WrestleMania UK YouTube channel, where you're watching this, I'm sure. And Gerard Bonner, you can find him on The Faction Show and Bonafide on Twitter, on Instagram, on church.com. I don't know.
And shout out Cody Rhodes. It's just good to see you home, sir. It's good to see you.
So that is another talking point, but we don't talk about that on here. But I'd love to, but we won't. That's another hour.
It is.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us in our spaces on Twitter and on Instagram, and keep on top of what's going on. Jet Power 10 list will be coming out this week as well, so stay tuned to that one. That is the end of our show, and we'll see you again next week.
See you later, guys.